All right, to close up Chapter 6, this lecture corresponds with Section 6.7 of your textbook. And up until now, we've been dealing with situations and solving calculations for situations in which we have access to the population standard deviation, notated by sigma. And most cases, we actually don't have that information. The population standard deviation is very rarely known. So in that case, we use the sample standard deviation as an estimate of that parameter, but we have to make a correction. And this correction is detailed in your book in section 6.7.1. And it's not complicated, it just involves some different calculations to arrive at those terms. So rather than using the standard error of the population, we're using the estimated standard error using the sample standard deviation. And so when we know the standard deviation of the population, we can use the z distribution and the z-tables, which is table A in the appendix C. But when we don't know sigma, we can't use z, so we use t instead. And instead of table A, we're going to use table C. And there's a very good section of the Revel text that details how to use those tables, and I encourage you to take advantage of those resources. When we're calculating the variance and the standard deviation, I have a new denominator now of n minus 1 rather than n. And if you want to review pages 104 to 105, this will detail to you the differences in the calculations. We also have something called degrees of freedom now, which indicates how close t is to the normal curve. And the more people that we have in our sample, the more degrees of freedom we have, because degrees of freedom is n minus 1 or 2, depending on the technique that we're using. And again, that information is detailed in the Revel text. So again, there's a lot of areas of this particular chapter that you need to supplement with the Revel text. This whole course is predicated on the idea that you're going to use the Revel text heavily and use the lectures as a way to kind of conceptually fill in the gaps with how you're doing. So if you're struggling right now, you need to take advantage of the tutor. There's an excellent tutor assigned to this class. And so please use the resources that are available to you so that you can be successful. The text is very efficient in demonstrating how to arrive at the t-value. This is in particular in section 6.7.2, as well as how to solve for the confidence interval. So remember, just like z, t-scores are deviation scores. So if if our t ratio is equal to 2.45, that means that the sample mean that we're investigating is 2.45 standard errors above the population mean. And confidence intervals are interpreted in the same way. The only difference is in the calculation. The calculation now requires the standard error as estimated by the population, by the sample statistic. And this is called the unbiased estimate of the standard error of the mean in the Revel text.